Hello everyone, welcome back to the Q&A discussion series. So in today's discussion, we'll talk about the important concepts of clinical trials, and also we'll discuss the MCQs related to that. So this will be highly beneficial for all the competitive exams where this particular concept or the topic is there. Okay, so without any further delay, let's move on to the concepts of clinical trial. So here, let's understand a fact that we have developed a new drug. Okay, so suppose I have developed a new drug. Can I give it to the patients or can I market the drug? The answer is no. We cannot give it to the patients or market the drug without any testing or various procedures. Okay, so that means once we develop a drug, once we develop a compound, the compound or the drug has to go through various trials or procedures before and get the approval from the regulatory agency before it is marketed or given to the patients. Okay, so suppose we feel that the compound what we have developed has a potential to come as a or develop as a therapeutic drug, then the first thing you need to do is to test the compound or this particular drug in animals. We need to test the drug in animals, and this is called as the preclinical trial. Preclinical trial, which is the testing of the drugs in or the compound in animals. So this is basically done to check the safety of the compound or the drug, or to see the efficacy of the compound. Okay, so this is called as the preclinical trial. Now when you do this preclinical trial in animals, you need to follow certain guidelines called as the CPC-SCA guidelines and GLP guidelines, good laboratory practice guidelines. We'll come to what is CPC and GLP in the MCQ discussion. So you need to follow these guidelines, and this guideline will tell what to do, what not to do, how to conduct the preclinical trial. So that is the objective of CPCA and GLP, or good laboratory practice. Okay. Now, once you complete the preclinical trial, that the toxicity studies and all, you need to file an application called as investigational new drug application. You need to file an application to the concerned regulatory agencies. For example, if you wanted to, if you're in India, if you want to test the drug in India, you need to file this application to the regulatory agency called as CDSCO. Okay, so if it is in India, you need to file this application to CDSCO, that is Central Drug Standard Control Organization. If you are at US, you need to send this application to US FDA. Okay, so they will scrutinize or they will go through your application, check the preclinical trial data, and once they give the approval, you can test it in humans, and that is called as you can test it in the human. That is called as the clinical trial. So clinical trial is nothing but testing of this compound or the drug in humans to study the safety, efficacy, and finally you need to get the approval and to market the drug. Now, when you do clinical trial, just like the preclinical trial, you need to follow certain guidelines, and that guidelines globally, which is accepted, is called as the International Council of Harmonization, as well as the GCP guidelines, ICH GCP guidelines, International Council of Harmonization. GCP means good clinical practice. Okay, so you need to, so these guidelines will tell you how to conduct the clinical trial, what to do, what not to do. So you need to follow these guidelines. Okay, now in this clinical trial, first the mandatory trials are phase 1. So there are different phases. So the first one is called as the phase 1 clinical trial. Once it is done, we'll move to the phase 2 clinical trial. Once it is done, we'll move to the phase 3 clinical trial. Okay, so in clinical trial, again by different phase, we'll come to the phase 3 clinical trial. Now here, after the phase 3 clinical trial, can you market the drug? Can you give it to the patient? Again, the answer is no. So after the phase 3 trial, you need to again send an application called as the new drug application. So after the preclinical trial, the application was investigational new drug application, IND. But here, after the phase 3, the application is new drug application, or NDA. Now, where to submit? As I earlier told, if you are in India, you need to find to the regulatory agency in India called as the CDSCO, Central Drug Standard Control Organization, headed by the DCGA, Drug Control Government of India. If you are in US, you need to send it to the US FDA. So they will go through these applications, and they will test all the data, and they will check all the data, and finally they will give the approval to prescribe the drug or give it to the patient, and that trial is called as phase 4 trial. Okay, phase 4 trial means you are marketing the drug. Your drug can come to the market. That means your drug can be prescribed globally. Okay, so that is the phase 4 trial, which is also called as the post marketing trial, post marketing surveillance. Okay. Now let us understand some of the important facts you need to know with respect to all these phases of clinical trial. Okay, so this is a table where we'll summarize the important things you need to know. So as I told, once you get the approval from the CDSCO or the US FDA, after filing the new investigational new drug application, you will be able to conduct the clinical trials. So the mandatory trials are phase 1 trial, phase 2 trial, phase 3. Then once you again you file the application NDA, finally they will, if they give approval, you can go for, you can prescribe the drug or you can give the drug to the market. That is phase 4 trial. Okay, now all this phases, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, they are all costly procedures. They are really expensive. Okay, so nowadays what the pharma company do, some because the drug has high chances to fail in each of the phases, and it's a huge money involved trials. Okay, so what they do is that they will do a trial. Some of the pharmaceutical company, which is not a mandatory trial, it depends on the pharmaceutical company. They do a trial called as the phase 0 trial. This phase 0 trial is also called as micro dosing trial. Micro dosing trial. Micro dosing trial. Okay, and it is not a mandatory trial. Okay, whereas phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, they are all mandatory, but phase 0 is not mandatory. Okay, now why they do is that, what they do is that they will use a dose of 100 microgram, a very less dose, 100 microgram of dose, or 1 by 100 of the actual therapeutic dose. Okay, they will use either this low dose, and they will give it to the patient and check whether the drug is binding to the target. Okay, so this phase 0, which is also called the micro dosing trial, is to identify whether the drug is binding to the target or not. Okay, to identify the drug is binding to the target. Suppose you wanted to deliver it to the brain. So they had, if the drug is not going to the brain, there is no point in conducting phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, because it's a huge money involved trials. Okay, so if the drug is not getting into the desired target, then they will stop the study. They will not go for phase 1, 2, 3, because there is the drug will not be efficacious. Okay, so that is why, to avoid the huge loss of money or the failure of the drug in this phase different trials, they do a trial called as phase 0 or micro dosing trial, where they use a lower dose called as 100 microgram, or 1 by 100 of the actual dose. That means here they cannot study the efficacy of the drug, or they cannot study the safety of the drug. They only, the plan of this phase 0 trial is to see or to identify whether the drug is binding to the target or not. Okay, they can also see the biodistribution. They can also check the pharmacokinetics. So these are the two objectives of the phase 0 trial. Now here, what type of volunteers you will take for the study? Yes, you will take healthy volunteers. You will take the healthy volunteers. Okay, so normally this phase 0 microdosing trial is done mainly in 2 to 3 patients. So let us have an approximate value 1 to 5. So the sample size is 1 to 5, 1 to 5 patients. Normally 2 or 3 patients, 2 or 3 healthy volunteers are taken for this trial. And here, this healthy volunteers, as well as the investigator, knows what kind of drug you are giving. So basically, the design is a open label study. This is called as open label. Both the volunteer as well as the investigator knows what kind of drug he is taking or the volunteer is taking. So that is called as the open label study. So these are the point you need to remember about phase 0, which is also called as the micro dosing trial. It is a non-mandatory trial. It depends on the pharmaceutical company whether they need to conduct this phase 0 or not. Okay, and the purpose is to see whether the drug is binding to the target or not. Okay, so that is the main objective of the study. Okay. Now let's come to the phase 1, which is the first trial. Okay, so it is also called as first in human trial. It is also called as first in human trial. First in human trial, and again, this is done on healthy volunteers. Okay, it is done in healthy volunteers, and the number or the sample size you can just multiply by 10. Earlier in phase 0 it is 1 to 5, right? So you multiply by 10. So the approximate volunteers, healthy volunteers, you will take in the studies 10 to 50. Here also, the volunteer as well as the investigator is aware about what kind of drug you are giving. So here also it is an open label study or open label design. Both the volunteer, healthy volunteer, as well as the investigator is aware of what kind of drug you are giving and all that. So that is also an open label study. Now the question is, what is the purpose of this phase 1 trial? Okay, so the main purpose of this phase 1 trial is to check the safety of the drug. Okay, so safety, first in healthy volunteers you will see whether the drug is safe or not. So we'll administer different doses and we'll see what is the maximum tolerable dose. Maximum tolerable dose will be studied in the phase 1 trial. Maximum tolerable dose, that is called as MTD, maximum tolerable dose. Okay, so that is the main objective or the purpose of phase 1 trial. Also the pharmacokinetics will be studied, but remember, the efficacy the efficacy is not studied in this trial. Efficacy is not studied in this phase 1 trial. The main purpose is to find the maximum tolerable dose or the safety. Fine. So that is the point you need to remember. Phase 1 trial is also called as first in human trial. Okay. It is also called as safety and pharmacology trial. Safety and pharmacology trial. Okay. Now once it is done, we will move to the phase 2 trial. So here we'll first the main purpose of phase 2 trial is to check the efficacy. Okay, so the main objective is to explore the efficacy. So this is the first trial where you are going to check the efficacy of the drug. Earlier I told you, in phase 0 also we are not checking the efficacy. In phase 1 also we will not check the efficacy. So the first trial where efficacy is checked or explored is the phase 2 trial. Therefore this trial is also called as therapeutic exploratory trial. Therapeutic exploratory trial. And since it is the first time where you are checking the efficacy, this is also called as proof of concept trial. Proof of concept trial. So phase 2 trial is also called as therapeutic exploratory trial or proof of concept trial. Now where you will conduct this study, whether in healthy volunteers or patients? The answer is patients, because you need to check the efficacy, right? So it has to be checked on patients, for example diabetic patients or Parkinsonism patients. So you need to check in patients to understand the efficacy. You cannot do it in a healthy volunteer. You can have to check in the patients. Okay. Now, what is the number of patients you need to take it for the study? As I told you, just multiply by 10. So earlier it was 10 to 50 in phase 1. So just multiply by 10. So the sample size is 100 to 500. This is an approximate value. It can vary plus or minus 50. It can vary or plus or minus 100. It can vary. Approximately 100 to 500. Hundreds of patients are taken in the phase 2 clinical trial. Now here, this is not an open label study. That means this is a randomized controlled trial. Here the volunteer will not be aware. Volunteer will not know what kind of drug, whether he's taking the drug or the placebo, whether he's taking something without any drug or whether he's taking the actual drug. The volunteer or the patient will not be aware. Patients will not be aware. Okay. Now, but the investigator will know. Investigator knows what kind of drug is given. So this is called as the single blind study. Single blind study. Okay, so basically blinding is done. That is a randomized control trial. Okay, so single blind where the investigator knows but the patient does not know which drug is given. So that is called the single blinding study. Okay, so in phase 2 the blinding is single blinding. Okay, now I told you the main purpose is to explore the efficacy. Also in each of this phase 2, phase 3, everywhere we will check the safety, because the number of patients are increasing, right? So in all the patients the safety can be checked. Okay, so but the main objective is to explore the efficacy. So once phase 2 is done, we'll move to the phase 3 trial. And phase 3 trial, the main objective is to confirm the efficacy. Confirm the efficacy. Because earlier we in phase 2 we have checked in 100 to 500 patients, right? But now they will increase the sample size to thousands of patients. So in all those patients, whether this drug is efficacious, we can confirm in the phase 3 trial. Therefore, this phase 3 trial is also called as therapeutic confirmatory trial. Phase 2 was called as therapeutic exploratory trial, but phase 3 is called as therapeutic confirmatory trial. Now again, this is done on patients. And what is the number? Yes, you can multiply by 10. So 1000 to 5000 patients will be, or approximate number is 1000 to 5000. So you will check or confirm the efficacy in the phase 3 trial. And this is done in different sites. Okay, so in different heterogeneous population. Therefore, this trial phase 3 is also called as multi-site trial. Multi-site trial. Okay, so phase 3 trial is also called as therapeutic confirmatory trial or multi-site trial. Now how the study is done? Here also it is mainly the randomized control thing. Here the patient or the volunteer will not know what he is taking or not. Same way, investigator also will not know whether what kind of drug is given or the placebo is given. So this is again a randomized control study. Since both the volunteer and investigator is unaware, this is called as a double blind study. Double blind study, whereas phase 2 was single blind. Okay, here both the patient as well as the investigator is unaware of what he or she is taking. So that is why it is a double blind study. Now, as I already told, the main objective is to confirm the efficacy, and in phase 3 you will find out the actual dose of the drug. Because in phase 1, 2 and all that, the drug dose will be in a range, let's say 10 to 30 microgram. Okay, but in phase 3, since it is a large number of patients, you will confirm the actual dose of the drug. Okay, apart from that, the safety of the drug could be tested because it is tested in thousands of patients, so safety also could be studied, but the main objective is to confirm the efficacy and find out the actual dose of the drug. Okay, so that is all about phase 3. Now what I told, they will file an application called as new drug application to the concerned regulatory agency. Once they give the approval, you can market the drug, and that is called as the phase 4 trial or post marketing trial or post marketing surveillance. So here it will be this drug will be prescribed to a lot of patients. So the type of voluntary is patients only. And what is the number? The number is unlimited because it can get into a lot of patients who are having problem with that particular disease. Okay, so it gets into all the patients. So the number is not limited; it's unlimited. Now here, whether it is a open label or a blinding study. See, you know that when a drug is in the market and the patient takes the drug, the patient will be unaware of the drug, right? And the person who prescribes the drug also will be aware. So that means both are aware. So basically, it is a open label, not a closed label. Open label study. Okay, so phase 0, phase 1, as well as phase 4, they are open label studies. Whereas phase 2 and phase 3, they involves blinding. Okay, and what is the main purpose of phase 4 trial? Yes, to find the rare side effect. If it is in the market, you can find out the rare side effect, whether any rare side effect is reporting, or the patient will be taking a drug for long term. So the long term side effect also could be explored in the phase 4 trial. Okay, so this is the summary of all the phases you need to know for the exam. Now, based on this understanding and the concepts I have explained, we'll try to solve all the MCQs related to the clinical trial. Let's move on to the first question. Preclinical trial should be done under. Preclinical trial. I told you preclinical trial means the testing in animals. So I told you that should be done under the CPCA guidelines, CPCSCA guidelines, and the good laboratory practice GLP guidelines. Okay. So the answer for this question will be GLP. B choice. Next question. CPCSCA stands for. So this is the guideline to do the preclinical trial, testing it in the animals, and the full name of CPC is Committee for the Purpose of Control and Supervision of Experiments on Animals. That is the full name of the expanded form of CPCA. Okay, so the answer is A choice. Next question. Which application has to be submitted to the regulatory agency? Which application has to be submitted to the regulatory agency? Get the approval to start the clinical trial. So I told you after the preclinical trial, we need to submit an application called as INDA, investigational new drug application. And where you need to submit? You need to submit to the regulatory agency, for example, CDSCO in India, US FDA in US. Okay. Once they approve it, you can test it in the humans. That is called as the clinical trial. So which application has to be submitted to the regulatory agency to get approval for starting the clinical trial? The answer is INDA. Answer is B choice. Next question. INDA stands for, again, the expression is very simple. INDA stands for investigational new drug application. Next question. Which of the following parameters cannot be studied in phase 1 trial? Which of the following parameters cannot be studied in phase 1 trial? Safety, efficacy, tolerable dose, all of the above. You can pause the video and try to answer it. Okay. So I told you the purpose of phase 1 trial is to check the safety. Okay. In safety, you will try at different doses and see which is the maximum tolerable dose. Maximum tolerable dose. Okay. So that is the thing you will study. Here, the question is which of the parameters cannot be studied. So safety you will study. The tolerable dose you will study. Will you study the efficacy in phase 1? No. So which cannot be studied? The answer for this question is efficacy. Safety and tolerable dose you will study in the phase 1 trial. Let's move on to the next question. Which phase of clinical trial involve healthy volunteers? Which trial involves healthy volunteers? You can pause the video and try to answer. So I told you the mandatory trials are phase 1, 2, 3 and 4. Okay, you know, in phase 1 we took healthy volunteers. Also I told you certain pharmaceutical company conduct a trial phase 0, that is a microdosing trial. There also you will check it in the healthy volunteers. So which trials involve healthy volunteers? The answer is phase 0 and phase 1. Choice B. Next question. Maximum tolerable dose is determined in which phase of clinical trial? Already I told you safety, and maximum tolerable dose is found in phase 1 trial. Choice B. Next question. Which trial is done after the approval of investigate INDA? Okay, so I told you after PCT, you will file the application INDA and you will come to the clinical trial. And in clinical trial, which is the first trial, mandatory trial, that is phase 1 trial. So which trial is done after the approval of INDA? Yes, the answer is phase 1 trial. A choice. Next question. Which trial is done after the approval of NDA? So after PCT, we will file INDA. Once you get the approval, you will do the clinical trial. In clinical trial, the mandatory trials are phase 1, then phase 2, then phase 3. After phase 3, you will file an application called as new drug application, then you will go for the phase 4 or the post marketing. Okay, so the question is, which trial is done after the approval of NDA, after NDA? So the answer is phase 4 trial. So the answer is D choice. Next question, after which phase of clinical trial NDA is sent to the regulatory agency? Just the previous question. So we will send the new drug application after which trial? Yes, phase 3 trial. So NDA, new drug application, is sent to the regulatory agency after which trial? The answer is phase 3 trial, C choice. Next question, which phase of clinical trial has maximum risk of failure? Maximum risk of failure. Now you know that phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Now the first time we study the efficacy in which trial? Yes, efficacy will be studied in phase 2 trial. First time we will check the efficacy in phase 2 trial. So therefore, since we are checking the efficacy for the first time in phase 2 trial, the maximum risk of failure is also in the phase 2 trial. So the answer for this question is B choice, phase 2 trial, where the maximum risk of failure is there. Okay, let's move to the next question. Which phase of clinical trial involves study of efficacy of a new drug for the first time? Just the previous question I've explained. In which phase we will study the efficacy of the new drug for the first time? Which would be the answer? Yes, it is phase 2. Phase 2 will study the efficacy for the first time. Okay, next question, longest phase of clinical trial. So I told you in phase 0 normally we will take 1 to 5 patients. Okay, whereas in phase 1 you can multiply by 10 to 50. The phase 2 it is 100 to 500. Phase 3 it is 1000 to 5000, and in phase 4 it is unlimited, right? So which will be the longest phase, the long term side effects, the rare side effects? Which phase? The answer is phase 4. Phase 4 clinical trial is the longest phase of the clinical trial. Okay, next question, in which phase of clinical trial efficacy of a new drug is compared with the existing drug? This is an important question. Which phase of clinical trial the efficacy of a new compound or a drug is compared with the existing trial? Okay, so the answer for this question is phase 3 trial. So I told you in phase 3 it is a randomized control trial. Okay, so here the new drug will be checked with the already existing drug. Okay, already existing drug, you will see whether it is superior to the new drug is whether it is superior to the already existing drug, that you check in the phase 3 trial. It is a randomized control trial. So the answer for this question is C choice, phase 3. Next question, which phase of clinical trial involves the actual randomized control trial? Okay, so I told you both phase 2 and phase 3 involves the randomized control trial. Okay, since you need to select one option, there is no both phase 2 and phase 3, right? So then the best answer for this question is phase 3. Okay, if both phase 2 and phase 3 is there, you can go for that choice, but here they have not given both the choice, so better answer would be phase 3, because in phase 3 both the patients are unaware as well as the investigator is unaware. So it's a double blind study, right? Double blind study. So that is a randomized control trial, actual randomized control trial. Also, you will check the efficacy of a compare the new drug with the already existing drug. Okay, so the phase 3 would be the best answer for this question. Okay, next question, which phase of clinical trial involves maximum number of patients? Phase 1, 2, 3, 4, which involves the maximum number of patients. Yes, we have told that phase 4 is unlimited. Okay, so phase 4 involves the maximum number of patients. Next question, which phase of clinical trial is not mandatory by the US FDA? Not mandatory. I told you phase 1, 2, 3, 4 all are mandatory, whereas phase 0 it depends on the pharmaceutical company. Okay, check whether it is binding to the target or not. So actually it is not mandatory. It depends on the pharmaceutical company whether you need to go for microdosing trial, that is phase 0. Okay, next question, which of the following ethical guidelines followed globally while conducting the clinical trial? I told you when you conduct the clinical trial, International Council of Harmonization and the good clinical practice has to be followed. Okay, so the answer for this question will be ICH GCP guidelines. Next question, which phase of clinical trial involves the attachment of radioligand to study to the drug to study the biodistribution? Okay, so I told you in phase 0 or the microdosing trial, we wanted to check whether the drug is binding to the targets, Now, how we will know whether the drug is going to the brain or the liver or the kidney? We cannot see the drug, right? So for that, you will attach a radioligand. In the microdosing trial, you will attach a radioligand, and which can be examined using the scanning technique like a PET scan, PET scan, and all that. And you can find out whether the drug is actually binding to the brain or liver or kidney. So that is why the radioligand is used. Okay, so radioligand is attached to the drug. See the binding or to study the biodistribution, you will attach a radioligand, and is done in which phase of clinical trial? Yes, microdosing trial or phase 0 trial. Next question, Which phase of clinical trial involves the study of long-term side effects and rare adverse effects? Simple question. I told you which phase the rare side effect, long-term side effect. Yes, answer is phase 4. Answer is D choice. Next question. Phase 4 in clinical trial is also called as, we have told that the phase 4 means the drug is actually coming to the market. So it is post-marketing surveillance. Post-marketing surveillance. Okay. So the answer for this question is B choice. Next, the Drug Regulatory Authority of India. I told you the Drug Regulatory Authority of India is a CDSCO, Central Drug Standard Control Organization. Central Drug Standard Control Organization, abbreviated as CDSCO, and this is headed by the Drug Controller Government of India, DCGI. Okay, so the Drug Regulatory Authority of India, C choice, CDSCO. Next question. Preclinical trial should be done under. So I told you preclinical trial should be done under the good laboratory practice and the CPCSCA guidelines. So which is the answer given here? Answer is GLP, good laboratory practice, B choice. Next question. Which of the following statement is true? Let us take each of this choice. We need to find which is correct, right? In phase 0, efficacy of a drug can be studied. I told you in phase 0, the safety is mainly studied, the maximum tolerable dose, and we are not going to study the efficacy. So is the sentence correct? No, this is wrong. Now let's look into B choice. In phase 1, efficacy of a drug can be studied. Sorry, in phase 0, I told you it's a microdosing trial. Microdosing trial. Okay, to check the target, whether drug is binding to the target. That is phase 0. Phase 0. Okay, phase 0 is to check the microdosing trial to check the binding. So in phase 1, I told you that mainly the safety of a drug is studied, not the efficacy. So that means choice B also wrong, A also wrong. Now let's look at C choice. In phase 0, toxicity can be studied. So I told you we are just using 100 microgram, very less dose only. So can you study the efficacy? You cannot study the efficacy. Can you study the safety? No, you cannot study both the safety and efficacy. So what is done in phase 0? Only to check whether the drug is binding to the target or not, or the pharmacokinetics or the biodistribution. So here the answer is the toxicity can be studied, which is again a wrong choice. Let's look into the D choice. In phase 1, toxicity can be studied. Yes, we told that in phase 1 we'll check the safety of a drug, the maximum tolerable dose. That means we'll study the toxicity. And so which statement is true? The correct statement is D choice. D choice. Okay. Next question. Which phase of clinical trial involves double blind study? So I told you in phase 1 it is open label. Both the patient and the volunteer, both the healthy volunteer and the investigator is aware of the drug, whether it's a drug, okay, or placebo. But in phase 2, where you study the efficacy, it is a randomized control trial. Here the patient will not be aware. But the investigator will be aware. So this is called a single blind study. Whereas in phase 3, also randomized control trial, both the patient as well as the investigator is not aware. So that is called as double blinding. Both are not aware. Okay, so double blinding study, the answer is phase 3. Phase 3. Whereas if you look at phase 4 as well as phase 0, they are also open label study. Open label. Okay, hope it is clear. Next question. Which phase of clinical trial is called as multi-centered or multi-site? I told you when the drug comes to phase 3, you will do it in a heterogeneous population and you will check at different centers, multi-centered. Okay, so which trials involve multi-center study? The answer is phase 3 trial. Next question. In which phase of clinical trial drug is banned or withdrawn? See, when you wanted to withdraw a drug or ban a drug, it should be already in the market, right? It should be already in the market. And in which phase the drug is in market? Yes, phase 4 trial. So once it reaches only the phase 4, you can withdraw the drug or ban the drug. So in which trial we will withdraw the drug? Answer phase 4. If the drug is having rare side effects or long-term side effect, we will withdraw the drug, and that will happen in the phase 4 trial. Next question. Which phase of clinical trial is called as the proof of concept trial? Proof of concept. So I told you proof of concept means we should study the efficacy for the first time. And in which trial we'll study the efficacy for the first time? Yes, it is phase 2. So phase 2 is also called as the proof of concept trial. Proof of concept trial. Phase 2 trial is also called as the proof of concept trial or therapeutic exploratory trial. Okay. Next question. In which phase of clinical trial pharmacoeconomics can be determined? Remember this question, pharmacoeconomics, regarding the cost we'll try to determine in the phase 3 trial. So phase 3 trial is a trial where the economics part. Okay, and it is the phase 3 trial is also a costly trial because a lot of patients are involved, right? 1,000 to 5,000 patients are involved. Okay, so it's a very costly trial. The expense is very high, and the pharmacoeconomics are determined in the phase 3 trial. Then only we'll go for the new drug application and market that, and after the approval, we'll market the drug. Okay, so pharmacoeconomics is related to phase 3 trial. Next question. And the last question, which phase of clinical trial is done in heterogeneous population? I told you in phase 3, it is called as multi-site or multi-centered trial, and it will be, it involves a lot of people and different kinds of people, heterogeneous population. Okay. So phase 3 trial is the trial where you will do the trial in heterogeneous population. The correct answer is C choice. Okay. So hope you understood all the discussions on the concepts related to the clinical trial, and we have discussed almost all MCQs coming in that clinical trial. So keep on watching. Thank you so much.